Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the UES Dongbek, watching the stars through the main window. The massive battleship moved slowly through space, its engines humming quietly. 3,000 crew members worked inside the ship, each doing their job to keep humanity's greatest warship running. The year was 2387. Earth had joined the Galactic Federation 50 years ago, becoming part of a big group that included 47 different alien species. All these species had agreed to follow the Cosmic Warfare Accords, rules that kept wars from destroying the entire galaxy. The rules were simple but strict. Weapons could only use plasma energy, solid projectiles, or energy shields. Anything else was against the law and could get you thrown in prison. Minho had been a captain for 15 years. He was 42 years old with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. His crew trusted him because he always found creative ways to solve problems, even when the rules made things difficult. "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Choi Do-hyun from his station, "we're getting close to the patrol zone." Do-hyun was younger than Minho, only 35, but he was one of the best tactical officers in the fleet. His black hair was always perfectly neat and his uniform never had a wrinkle. "Good," Minho replied. "Dr. Kim, what did the sensors show?" Dr. Kim Ji-won looked up from her science station. She was the ship's chief science officer, a brilliant woman who had studied physics at the best schools on Earth. Her long hair was tied back in a ponytail, and she wore thick glasses that made her look very serious. "The nebula ahead is showing some strange readings, Captain. Energy patterns I've never seen before." Minho walked over to look at her screen. The nebula was huge, filled with purple and blue gases that swirled around like a slow storm. It was beautiful, but something felt wrong about it. "What kind of energy?" Minho asked. "I'm not sure," Ji-won said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "It's not like anything in our databases. The energy seems to be moving in patterns, almost like it's alive." On Earth, Admiral Park Sora was sitting in her office at Fleet Command. She was 55 years old and had been in charge of the outer patrol fleets for 10 years. Her hair was starting to turn white, and she had scars on her hands from her younger days as a fighter pilot. Right now, she was worried about the Dongbek. "Any word from Captain Lee?" she asked her assistant. "They checked in 2 hours ago," the young officer replied. Everything was normal then. Sora nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had known Minho for 20 years, since they both served on the same ship as young officers. He was like a brother to her, and she always worried when he was on dangerous missions. Back on the Dongbek, the ship was getting closer to the nebula. The purple gases seemed to glow brighter as they approached. "Captain," said Chief Engineer Nam Hyunwoo over the radio, "the engines are acting strange. Power levels keep changing for no reason." Hyunwoo was down in the engine room where huge machines created the energy that pushed the ship through space. He was a big man with strong hands, perfect for fixing complicated machines. "Can you fix it?" Minho asked. "I'm trying, but I've never seen anything like this before." Suddenly the ship started to shake. Not hard, but enough to make everyone grab onto something. The lights on the bridge flickered. "What's happening?" Minho demanded. Ji-won was typing fast on her computer. "The energy from the nebula is getting stronger. It's like it's pulling us toward it. Do-hyun, can we turn around?" "I'm trying, sir, but the controls aren't responding properly." The shaking got worse. Through the window, they could see the nebula getting bigger and bigger. The purple gases were swirling faster now and bright lights were flashing deep inside. "All hands prepare for emergency maneuvers," Minho announced over the ship's speakers. Throughout the Dongbek, 3,000 people stopped what they were doing and grabbed onto the nearest solid object. The ship shook harder. Some of the lights went out completely. In the darkness, the nebula's purple glow made everything look strange and scary. "Captain!" Ji-won shouted over the noise. "The energy readings are off the charts. Something big is about to happen. Can we send a message to Earth?" Minho asked. "I'll try," said the communications officer, but when she pressed the buttons, nothing happened. "No response, sir. Something is blocking our signals." The ship was now being pulled directly into the nebula. The purple gases surrounded them, and the view outside became a swirling mess of colors. The shaking was so bad that people were falling down, even while holding on to things. In her office on Earth, Admiral Sora suddenly sat up straight. The communication device on her desk was making an alarm sound. "Admiral," her assistant said, running into the room, "we've lost contact with the Dongbek. Their signal just disappeared." Sora felt her heart skip a beat. "When?" 30 seconds ago. One moment they were there, the next moment, nothing. On the dongback, Captain Minho was holding onto his chair as the ship spun through the nebula. The purple light outside was so bright it hurt to look at. Hull integrity holding, Yunwoo reported from engineering. But I don't know for how much longer. Everyone hold on. Minho shouted. Then suddenly everything went white. Not just the light outside, but everything. The air itself seemed to glow. For a moment that felt like forever. Nobody could see anything except bright, pure light. When the light faded, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The ship wasn't shaking anymore. The engines weren't humming. Even the air seemed different. Minho looked around the bridge. His crew was still there, but they all looked confused and scared. Status report, he said quietly. Engines are offline, Yunwoo reported. But we're not dead. Life support is working. Where are we? Do-hyun asked. Jiwon was staring at her instruments with wide eyes. According to these readings, we're nowhere. The stars outside aren't the same stars. The nebula is gone. Everything is different. Through the window, they could see space filled with stars they had never seen before. Strange colors moved between the stars, and in the distance, something that looked like a giant ring of light was slowly turning. Captain, Jiwon said in a whisper, I don't think we're in our universe anymore. On Earth, Admiral Sora was organizing the biggest search operation in human history. 50 ships were heading toward the nebula, looking for any sign of the Dongbek, but they would find nothing. No wreckage, no signals, no trace that the ship had ever existed. The Dongbek and its 3,000 crew members had vanished completely, pulled into a place where the rules of physics worked differently, and where humanity's greatest battleship would have to become something entirely new, just to survive. Dr. Kim Ji-won stood in the ship's main laboratory, surrounded by machines that would have looked like magic to anyone from their home universe. Floating screens showed mathematical equations that bent in 3 dimensions, numbers that changed color to represent different types of energy, and calculations that required her to think in ways that hurt her brain. She had been working for 6 months to solve the biggest puzzle of her life: how to take a ship full of impossible technology back to a universe where such things weren't supposed to exist. The mathematics were incredibly complex, involving physics from both universes and the dangerous space between them. The dimensional barrier is weaker here, she explained to Captain Lee Minho, pointing at a floating map of local spacetime. If we can gather enough energy and focus it through our modified engines, we can punch a hole back to our home universe. Minho studied the calculations, though he understood only part of them. 15 years of living with impossible science had taught him enough to know when something was dangerous. What kind of energy are we talking about? More than our ship can safely produce, Ji-won admitted. We'll have to overload every system we have. The dimensional drive, the gravity disruptors, even the phase cannons. Everything will need to work together at maximum power. And the risks? Ji-won's expression became very serious. If we succeed, we'll probably damage our ability to return here. The dimensional tunnel might collapse behind us permanently. If we fail, the energy release could tear apart local spacetime. We could destroy everything within several light years. Chief Engineer Nam Hyunwoo joined them, his face covered in grease from working on the impossible machines that kept their ship running. I've been modifying the engines for 3 months now. The power requirements are insane, but I think we can do it once. Once is all we need, Minho said. But privately, he wondered if they were making the right choice. They had built a good life in this universe. They were heroes here, protectors of innocent people. Going home meant risking everything they had become. Commander Choi Do-yun approached from the tactical station. Captain, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a Void Reaper swarm heading toward the Procyon system. If we leave now, 5 billion people will die. This was the burden they carried. In this universe, they were often the only thing standing between innocent civilizations and terrible destruction. Every time they prepared to leave, another crisis appeared that only they could solve. How long until the swarm reaches Procyon? Minho asked. 18 hours, Do-yun replied. Minho closed his eyes and thought. They could delay their departure by a few days, fight the Void Reapers, and save those 5 billion people. But each delay made their return more difficult. The dimensional barrier was always changing and the window of opportunity was narrow. We can't save everyone, Ji-won said quietly, reading his thoughts. If we keep delaying, we'll never get home. It was a terrible choice, the kind that had shaped them over 15 years of impossible decisions. Save the people in front of them or return to the people they had left behind. Be the heroes this universe needed, or be the humans their own universe had lost. Prepare for departure, Minho said finally. Procyon will have to find another way. The crew worked for 2 more days making final preparations. Systems that had never been designed to work together were connected through improvised modifications. Engines that bent reality were pushed beyond their safety limits. Everyone knew that if something went wrong during the transition, they would all die in ways that physics couldn't properly explain. On the morning of departure, Minho gathered his senior staff for one last meeting. They sat around a table in the conference room looking older and more tired than any group of people should. I want everyone to understand what we're about to do, Minho said. We're going home to a universe that won't understand us. We're bringing technology that violates every law they hold sacred. Some of them will call us heroes. Others will call us criminals. We might face court-martial, imprisonment, or worse. We might also face war, Do-hyun added. The Corvathian Empire has been growing stronger. Our home universe might need us more than we realize, and we might not be human anymore when we arrive, Ji-won said softly. The dimensional transition will change us. We'll carry some of this universe's physics in our bodies. We'll see things others can't see, know things others can't understand. Yunwoo laughed grimly. We stopped being normal humans a long time ago. The question is whether we can remember how to care about normal human things. They voted on the final decision. 3,000 crew members, all given the choice to stay or go. Amazingly, they all chose to return. Even after 15 years, even after becoming something impossible, Earth still called to them. The departure itself was both simple and incredibly dangerous. The Dongbak moved to the calculated position in space, far from any inhabited systems in case something went wrong. All non-essential systems were shut down. Every bit of available energy was channeled into the dimensional drive. Beginning power buildup, Hyunwoo announced from engineering. Throughout the ship, machines that bent reality hummed to life. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Dimensional barrier thinning, Ji-won reported. Reality is becoming unstable in our local area. Through the bridge windows, space began to look wrong. Stars appeared to be in 2 places at once. Colors that didn't have names painted themselves across the darkness. The ship itself began to glow with light that hurt to look at directly. All systems at maximum power, Hyunwoo called out. We're beyond all safety limits now. Initiating dimensional breach, Ji-won announced. Reality tore open in front of them. Through the gap they could see normal space with normal stars and normal physics. It looked impossibly pure and simple after 15 years of living in a universe where anything was possible. Take us home, Minho ordered. The Dongbak shot forward into the breach. For a moment that lasted forever, they existed in the space between universes, where there was no time, no matter, no energy, nothing but potential waiting to become real. Then they burst through into normal space. An alarm started screaming, "Captain!" The communications officer shouted. We're detecting multiple ships nearby. They're fighting! Through the windows they could see a massive space battle. Human Federation ships were locked in combat with alien vessels they didn't recognize. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as ships died in the darkness. Those are Corvathian ships, Do-hyun said, studying the enemy formations. The war has gotten worse. One of the Federation ships, a cruiser that looked tiny compared to the Dongbak, was taking heavy damage. Its shields were failing and enemy fire was tearing through its hull. They're going to die, Ji-won said quietly. Minho watched the battle for a long moment. They had returned to find their home universe at war. Their people dying. The familiar weight of impossible decisions settled on his shoulders once again. All hands battle stations, he announced. We're back and it looks like we're needed. The Dongbak moved toward the battle, its impossible weapons coming online. The ship that had learned to fight gods was about to enter a war where normal physics still ruled, where weapons had limits and death was permanent. But they were still the crew of the Dongbak, still human in their hearts despite everything they had become, and humans protected their own, no matter what universe they were in. This is Captain Lee Minho of the UES Dongbak. He broadcast on all Federation frequencies. We're home, in Fleet Command on Earth. Admiral Park Sora was coordinating the defense against the Corvathian attack when her communications officer suddenly went pale. Admiral, the young woman said in a shaking voice, you need to hear this transmission. Sora listened to the recording once, then again, then a third time. The voice was older, more tired, but unmistakably familiar. "Minho?" she whispered to the empty air. "Is that really you?" In space, the impossible ship that had been lost for 15 years moved to protect the Federation fleet, carrying weapons that would change everything and crew members who had learned that sometimes coming home was the most dangerous journey of all. 15 years had passed since the Dongbek disappeared. On Earth, people still remembered the great battleship and its brave crew, but life had moved on. New ships had been built, and new officers had taken the places of those who were lost. Admiral Park Sora was now 70 years old. Her hair was completely white, and she walked with a slight limp from an old injury. She had never stopped looking for the Dongbek, but after 15 years, even she had to admit they were probably gone forever. The galaxy was different now. A new enemy called the Corvathian Empire had started attacking Federation worlds. They were big, strong aliens who believed that only the strongest should rule. Their ships were powerful, and they didn't care about the cosmic warfare accords as much as they should. But the Dongbek wasn't gone. It was somewhere else entirely, in a place where physics worked in strange and wonderful ways. Captain Lee Minho was now 57 years old. His hair was completely gray, and his face had lines that showed the weight of what he had experienced. He stood in the same place on the bridge where he had stood 15 years ago, but everything else was different. The bridge itself looked similar, but if you looked closely, you could see changes. The walls had metal patterns that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. The computer showed information in ways that shouldn't be possible, with numbers floating in the air like holograms. The main window still showed space, but the view outside was filled with things that broke every rule of science they had ever learned. "Report," Minho said to his crew. They were the same people who had disappeared 15 years ago, but they had all changed. They had learned things that no human was supposed to know. Dr. Kim Ji-won was still the chief science officer, but now she understood physics in ways that would have seemed like magic to her younger self. Her hair was streaked with gray, and her eyes held knowledge that was both wonderful and terrible. "The Void Reapers are moving toward the Centauri system," she reported. "If we don't stop them, they'll consume 3 billion innocent people." The Void Reapers were machines the size of small moons. They ate entire star systems, turning suns into black holes and planets into dust. In this universe, they were just one of many threats that would have been impossible back home. Lieutenant Commander Choi Do-yoon was now a full commander, though rank didn't mean much anymore. He had learned to use weapons that could bend space and time. His neat appearance was gone, replaced by the look of someone who had seen too much. "Our new weapons are ready," Do-yoon reported. "The gravity disruptors are charged and the phase cannons are online." These weren't the plasma weapons and kinetic projectiles they had started with. 15 years of fighting for survival had taught them to use technology that would have been considered impossible back home. Chief Engineer Nam Hyun-woo spoke from the engine room. He was bigger now, his muscles grown strong from working with machines that required physical strength to operate. "The dimensional drive is stable. We can phase through their defenses whenever you're ready." "Captain." The dimensional drive was something they had learned from the Ethereal Collective, strange beings made of pure energy who had taken pity on the lost humans. These aliens existed in several dimensions at once and could teach others to do the same. Minho remembered the first time they had met the Ethereals. The Dongbek had been badly damaged from fighting creatures that ate metal, and they were running out of food and water. The crew was scared and desperate, trapped in a universe where their weapons were useless and their knowledge meant nothing. Then the Ethereals had appeared, floating through the ship's walls like ghosts. They didn't speak with words, but somehow everyone could understand them. They had offered to help, but only if the humans proved they could learn. Learning meant changing everything they thought they knew about reality. It meant accepting that space and time could be bent, that energy could become solid, and that consciousness could exist without a physical body. Many of the crew had struggled with these ideas, but they had no choice. Learn or die, Dr. Ji-won had been the first to understand. She had spent months studying with the Ethereals, learning mathematics that made her head hurt but also opened her mind to possibilities she had never imagined. She learned that their home universe was actually very limited, with physical laws that prevented many wonderful and terrible things from existing. Engineer Hyun-woo had been the first to build something impossible, working with materials that didn't follow normal rules. He had created an engine that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. The engine could make the ship phase through solid objects or appear in two places at the same time. Commander Do-hyun had learned to fight enemies that could manipulate reality itself. He had developed tactics for battles where the laws of physics changed in the middle of combat. He learned to use weapons that could erase things from existence or trap them in bubbles of frozen time. But learning came with a price. The more they understood about this strange universe, the more they realized how dangerous their knowledge would be if they ever returned home. They had weapons that could destroy entire star systems with a single shot. They had technology that could rewrite the laws of physics in a local area. They had become something more than human, but also something less. "Sir," Ji-won said quietly, "I've been working on the calculations to return home. I think it's possible, but what?" Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. The energy required would tear open a permanent hole between the universes.
And we would have to take our weapons with us.
There's no way to separate the technology from the ship anymore. It's all connected. Minho looked around at his crew. They had been through so much together. They had fought monsters made of dark matter, survived in the hearts of dying stars, and learned to exist in places where time moved backward. They had become legends in this universe, protectors of the innocent and destroyers of evil. But they were still human in their hearts. They still remembered Earth, still dreamed of home. They thought about the families they had left behind, the world that had given them life. Even after 15 years, even after becoming something impossible, they wanted to go back. "The Void Reapers are almost at Centauri," Do-hyun reported. "We need to move now if we're going to save those people." "All hands prepare for dimensional phase," Minho announced. Throughout the ship, 3,000 crew members who had learned to do impossible things prepared for another impossible battle. The Dongbek began to glow with energy that shouldn't exist. Space around the ship started to bend and twist. Then suddenly, the ship simply wasn't there anymore. A moment later, it appeared in the Centauri system, directly between the Void Reapers and the inhabited planets. The enemy machines were huge, dark shapes that seemed to eat light itself. They had already started consuming the system's outer planets. "Fire the gravity disruptors," Minho ordered. Beams of twisted space shot out from the Dongbek. Where they hit the Void Reapers, reality itself seemed to break. The machines, which had been impossible to damage with normal weapons, began to collapse in on themselves as their own gravity was turned against them. "Phase cannons. Full spread," Do-hyun called out. More impossible weapons fired. These shots didn't travel through space like normal weapons. Instead, they appeared directly inside the enemy machines, exploding from within. Void Reapers that had devoured entire civilizations were destroyed in seconds. The battle was over quickly. The Dongbek had become something that could fight gods and win, but victory felt hollow. With each impossible battle, they became less human and more like the forces they fought. After the battle, as they watched the saved planets celebrate their rescue, Ji-won approached Minho with a serious expression. "Captain, I've finished the calculations. I can get us home." Minho looked at her for a long moment. "What will it cost?" "Everything," she said simply. "The process will probably damage our ability to return here. We'll be stuck in our home universe with weapons that break every law they hold sacred. They'll either worship us as gods or fear us as monsters. And if we stay here, we keep fighting. We keep saving people. We become the guardians of this universe, protecting the innocent from threats they can't imagine. But we never see Earth again." Minho thought about Admiral Sora, probably still looking for them after all these years. He thought about Earth, about blue skies and normal physics and laws that made sense. He thought about a home where weapons had limits and wars had rules. Then he looked at his crew, at people who had sacrificed their humanity to become something greater. They deserved the chance to choose their own fate. "Prepare for the return journey," he said quietly. "It's time to go home." The Federation Council chamber was the largest room on Unity Station, built to hold representatives from 47 different species. Today it felt like a courtroom, and the air was thick with tension and fear. Captain Lee Minho stood in the center of the chamber, wearing his old uniform that had been cleaned and pressed but could not hide the changes 15 years had made to him. His eyes held knowledge that made some of the alien representatives uncomfortable to look at directly. Around him sat judges, prosecutors, and curious observers from across the galaxy. Admiral Park Sora sat in the front row, looking older and more tired than Minho remembered. She had testified earlier about the Dongbek's disappearance and the search efforts that followed. Now she watched her old friend face charges that could result in his execution. The prosecutor was General Thane Valtar, a moderate Corvathian who had broken with his own empire to join the Federation. He was tall and gray-skinned, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed blue in the dark. Despite being from the enemy species, he believed deeply in the cosmic warfare accords. "Captain Lee," Valtar said in his deep voice, "you stand accused of possessing weapons that violate every law of civilized warfare. The technology on your ship can manipulate gravity, phase through solid matter, and erase objects from existence. Such weapons threaten the very foundation of galactic peace." Dr. Yoon Heun stood to defend them. She was 93 years old now, one of the few people still alive who had worked on the original dimensional theories. Her white hair was thin and she needed a walking stick, but her mind was still sharp. "Honorable Counsel," she said in a clear voice, "these charges assume that Captain Lee and his crew had a choice in acquiring this technology. The evidence will show that they were stranded in an alternate universe where such technology was necessary for survival." Judge Chancellor Mirthek, the head of the Federation Council, was a crystalline being whose body reflected light in beautiful patterns. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music. "Dr. Heun, the law is clear. Regardless of circumstances, bringing such weapons into our universe is a crime against all sapient life." "Then let me show you what they faced," Hyun said. She activated a holographic projector that displayed the crew's recorded encounters with Void Reapers, reality-bending enemies, and physics-defying threats. The images made several council members visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Kim Ji-won was called to testify about the scientific aspects of their journey. She explained how they had been forced to learn new physics to survive, how their ship had been gradually modified over 15 years, and how the technology had become part of their basic systems. "We didn't choose to break your laws," Ji-won said earnestly. "We chose to live. In that universe, our original weapons were useless. We had to adapt or watch 3,000 people die." Commander Choi Do-hyun testified about their military encounters, describing battles against enemies that could manipulate space and time. "We fought things that ate stars for breakfast," he said simply. "Normal weapons don't work against creatures made of dark matter." Chief Engineer Nam Hyun-woo explained the technical modifications they had made. "Every change was about survival," he said. "We never intended to become weapons ourselves." But in that place, the line between technology and user became blurred. General Valtar cross-examined each witness carefully. "Captain Lee," he said finally, "you claim you had no choice, but you chose to return here with these weapons. You could have stayed in your alternate universe and protected the innocent there." "We could have," Minho admitted, "but we're human beings. This is our home. We have families here, people we love. After 15 years, we still dreamed of Earth's blue skies and normal physics. Even knowing you would bring illegal weapons to a peaceful galaxy? Even knowing that," Minho said firmly. The trial continued for 3 days. Witnesses testified about the crew's heroic actions, their sacrifices, and their loyalty to humanity. But the facts remained unchanged. They possessed technology that violated galactic law. On the 3rd day, alarms began blaring throughout Unity Station. A massive Corvathian fleet had appeared at the edge of the system, taking advantage of the chaos and confusion surrounding the trial. Admiral Sora burst into the council chamber. "We're under attack," she announced. "The largest Corvathian fleet ever assembled is heading straight for us. All available ships are moving to intercept, but we're outnumbered 3-1. Through the large windows of the council chamber, they could see Federation ships launching from the station's docking bays. The vessels looked small and fragile against the backdrop of space. General Valtar's blue eyes glowed brighter with anger. "My extremist cousins have chosen the worst possible time for their madness." Judge Mirthek's crystalline body flashed with urgent patterns. "Captain Lee, your ship is currently impounded. Under Federation law, we cannot authorize the use of illegal weapons, even in self-defense." Minho looked around the chamber at the faces of dozens of different species, all united in their fear of both the approaching enemy and the weapons sitting in his ship. "With respect, Your Honor, my people are about to die. Law becomes meaningless if there's no one left alive to follow it. The Dongbek will remain impounded," Mirthek declared. "Federation forces will handle the defense." For 2 hours, they watched the battle unfold on the chamber's main screen. Federation ships fought bravely, but the Corvathian fleet was simply too large and too well equipped. One by one, human and alien vessels were destroyed or disabled. The Corvathian flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Iron Fist, broke through the Federation lines and headed directly for Unity Station. Its weapons could destroy the station and everyone on it with a single barrage. Estimated time to firing range, 6 minutes, an officer reported. In the council chamber, representatives from 47 species watched their approaching death with a mixture of dignity and despair. Some prayed to their various gods. Others said goodbye to loved ones over communication devices. Minho stood up slowly. Dr. Heian, what's the penalty for escaping from legal custody? The old woman smiled sadly. Life imprisonment, assuming you survive the escape attempt. And the penalty for using illegal weapons? Death by disintegration. Well, Minho said, activating a small device hidden in his uniform. I was already facing death. Might as well make it count. The device was a dimensional transporter, impossible technology that violated several other Federation laws. In an instant, Minho vanished from the chamber and reappeared on the bridge of the Dongbaek. His crew was already at their stations, having used similar devices to escape from their various holding cells throughout the station. They had been waiting for this moment, knowing their captain would never abandon the people he had sworn to protect. All hands, battle stations, Minho announced. It's time to remind the galaxy why humanity doesn't give up. The Dongbaek undocked from Unity Station without permission, its engines flaring to life with impossible energies. Security ships tried to stop them, but the battleship simply phased through their solid matter like a ghost. Enemy flagship in range, Do-hyun reported. The Iron Fist is charging its main guns. Then let's introduce them to weapons they've never imagined, Minho said grimly. The Dongbaek fired its gravity disruptors at the Corvathian dreadnought. Space around the enemy ship began to bend and twist. The Iron Fist, designed to withstand normal weapons, found itself being crushed by its own gravitational field. Phase cannons. Target their escorts, Minho ordered. Beams of impossible energy shot out from the Dongbaek, passing harmlessly through the Federation ships but materializing inside the Corvathian vessels. Enemy ships exploded from within as their hulls were filled with superheated plasma that appeared from another dimension. The battle lasted only 12 minutes. The entire Corvathian fleet, which had seemed unstoppable moments before, was either destroyed or fleeing in panic. The Iron Fist itself had been compressed into a ball of twisted metal, barely 100 meters across. In the council chamber, 47 different species watched in stunned silence as the impossible weapons did impossible things. Some were horrified by the display of power. Others were grateful to be alive. By the ancient crystals, Judge Mertek whispered, his body flashing with colors that indicated deep shock. What have we witnessed? General Valtar stood slowly, his forearms hanging at his sides. We have seen the future of warfare, he said quietly. And it terrifies me. Admiral Sora was smiling through her tears. We've seen Minho being Minho, she said. Saving people and breaking rules just like always. Dr. Heian leaned heavily on her walking stick. The question now is what we do with knowledge that we can't unknow, and weapons that we can't uninvent. On the Dongbaek, Captain Minho sat in his command chair and waited for the Federation to decide his fate.
He had saved Unity Station and everyone on it.
But he had also proven that humanity now possessed weapons that could destroy entire fleets in minutes. Outside his ship, Federation vessels surrounded them, but nobody tried to stop them anymore. The Dongbaek had become something beyond their ability to control, a ship that existed partly in their universe and partly somewhere else. Captain, Ji-won said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from Unity Station. The Council wants to talk. The Federation Council chamber looked different now. Half of the representatives sat in stunned silence, while the other half argued loudly in dozens of different languages. The impossible battle they had just witnessed had shattered everything they thought they knew about warfare and power. Captain Lee Minho stood once again in the center of the chamber, but this time he wasn't alone. His senior officers stood with him, each one carrying the weight of knowledge that couldn't be unlearned. They had saved Unity Station and everyone on it, but they had also proven that humanity now possessed weapons that could end civilizations. Judge Chancellor Mertek's crystalline body was flashing rapidly through different colors, a sign of deep emotional disturbance. "Captain Lee," he said, his musical voice strained, "you have placed us in an impossible situation. You saved our lives by breaking our most sacred laws." Dr. Yoon Haeun, despite her 93 years, stood straighter than she had in decades. The events of the past few hours had given her new energy. "Your Honor, perhaps it's time to consider that some laws become obsolete when reality changes." General Thane Valtar, the Corvathian prosecutor, was staring at data displays showing the remains of his people's once mighty fleet. Entire dreadnoughts had been reduced to twisted metal balls. Ships that had taken years to build had been destroyed in seconds. "My extremist cousins called humanity weak," Valtar said quietly. "They believed our species was naturally superior because of our size and strength. Today they learned that intelligence and adaptability matter more than physical power." Admiral Park Sora approached the center of the chamber, moving slowly but with determination. At 70 years old, she had seen enough war to understand what was really at stake. "Honorable Counsel," she said, "we're asking the wrong question. We're debating whether Captain Lee broke the law, when we should be asking how we adapt to a galaxy where such weapons exist." A representative from the Arcturian Assembly, a species known for their logical thinking, raised a tentacled arm. "Admiral Sora speaks wisely. The weapons exist. The knowledge exists. We cannot pretend otherwise simply because we find them frightening." But Representative Kell from the Rigelian Collective disagreed strongly. "These weapons violate the natural order. If we allow one species to possess such power, others will demand the same. We'll have an arms race that could destroy the galaxy." "The galaxy is already in danger," Dr. Kim Ji-won said, stepping forward. "The Corvathian Empire isn't the only threat out there. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the void between galaxies. Something is coming. Something that makes the Corvathians look like children playing with toys." She activated a holographic display showing deep space sensor readings. Strange energy signatures were moving through the empty darkness between galaxies, heading toward their region of space. "These energy patterns match the Void Reapers we fought in the alternate universe," Ji-won continued. "Machines that eat entire star systems. They're not bound by our physics, and normal weapons won't even slow them down." The chamber fell silent as representatives stared at the sensor data. The approaching threats were massive, far larger than any ship ever built. And they were coming from a direction where nothing should exist. Commander Choi Do-hyun spoke up from his position beside Minho. "In the alternate universe, we weren't the only humans who got pulled through. We met other Earth ships that had been lost over the centuries. All of them had to adapt or die. Some became guardians, others became something worse." "What do you mean?" asked Judge Murthek. "Some crews lost their humanity completely," Do-hyun said grimly. "They became so focused on survival that they forgot what they were trying to survive for. They became conquerors, using impossible weapons to build empires in that strange universe." Chief Engineer Nam Hyun-woo stepped forward, his large frame imposing even among the diverse alien representatives. "We could have stayed there and become gods. We had the power to reshape entire star systems, to create or destroy life on a whim. But we chose to come home because we remembered what we were fighting for." "And what was that?" asked Representative Kell suspiciously. "Home," Minho said simply. "Family. The idea that normal people should be able to live normal lives without fear. We became monsters so that others wouldn't have to." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives wanted the Dongbek destroyed and its crew executed as an example. Others argued for studying the technology and sharing it with all Federation species. A few suggested that humanity should be expelled from the Federation entirely. Finally, Dr. Haeun asked for permission to speak. The ancient scientist walked slowly to the center of the chamber, her walking stick tapping against the floor. "Honored representatives," she said, "I have lived for 93 years. I have seen humanity's first steps into space, our first contact with alien life, and our integration into the Galactic Federation. Today I have seen the future." She gestured toward Minho and his crew. "These people carry knowledge that terrifies us, but they also carry wisdom earned through suffering. They have faced temptations of power that none of us can imagine, and they chose to remain human." Haeun paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from dozens of worlds. "I propose a new paradigm. Not the destruction of dangerous knowledge, but its responsible application. Let humanity serve as guardians against threats that normal weapons cannot face, while the rest of the Federation maintains the peace we have built together. You're suggesting we make them our guardians? Asked the Arcturian representative. I'm suggesting we let them continue being what they've already become, Hyun replied. They didn't choose this burden, but they've proven they can carry it without losing their souls. Representative Kell stood up angrily. This is madness. You want to give one species unlimited power over the rest of us? No, Minho said quietly. We want to give you a choice. He activated a communication device, and suddenly, Captain Song Mira appeared as a hologram. She was another human who had been lost in space decades ago, commanding a smaller ship that had also been pulled into the alternate universe. This is Captain Song of the UES Takuk, the hologram said. We've been monitoring this discussion from the edge of your solar system. My crew and I returned 3 months ago, but we've been hiding, observing, trying to decide what to do. More holograms appeared. Captain Park Jisoo of the UES Hanbit, Captain An Sungo of the UES Gurium. 7 different ships all carrying impossible weapons, all crewed by humans who had been lost in space and found their way home changed. We propose the Guardian Compact, Minho said to the stunned chamber. Humanity will take responsibility for threats that exist beyond normal physics. We'll patrol the edges of known space, watching for dangers that conventional forces can't handle. In exchange, we'll share non-military applications of our technology and submit to Federation oversight for our actions. What kind of oversight? Asked Judge Merthik. Dr. Jiwon stepped forward. A joint commission of Federation scientists and philosophers will monitor our actions. We'll provide full reports on all our activities. Any use of our weapons will be reviewed and justified. And if you decide you don't want to follow Federation law anymore, Representative Kell demanded. Admiral Sora smiled sadly. Then you'll have the same problem you'd have if we stayed and you tried to imprison us. The difference is, this way we're working together instead of against each other. The vote took place the next day. 32 species voted in favor of the Guardian Compact. 11 voted against. 4 abstained. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Humanity officially became the Federation's guardians against impossible threats. The Dongbak and her sister ships would patrol the dark spaces between galaxies, watching for enemies that ate stars and fought with weapons that bent reality. 5 years later, Admiral Sora stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching the Dongbak prepare for another patrol mission. The ship looked different now, its hull modified with Federation technology that helped it exist more comfortably in normal space. Captain Minho visited her before each mission, and today was no different. He looked older, carrying the weight of responsibilities that no human should have to bear. The sensor readings are getting stronger, he told her. The Void Reapers are definitely coming. Maybe 10 years, maybe 20, but they're coming. Will you be ready? Sora asked. We'll have to be, Minho replied. The alternative is watching everything we love get consumed by machines that think consciousness is just another form of energy to harvest. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the impossible ship that had become humanity's gift and burden to the galaxy. Through the viewing port, they could see other Federation ships going about their normal duties, patrolling borders, escorting trade convoys, keeping the peace between species. It was a good life, a normal life, the kind that billions of people could live without fear because a few thousand humans had learned to fight monsters in the dark. Do you ever regret it? Sora asked. Becoming something more than human? Minho thought about it for a long moment. I regret that we had to, but I don't regret doing what was necessary to protect the people we love. The Dongbak launched from the station, its engines creating ripples in space-time as it accelerated toward the edge of known space.